Okay, let's get going. Let's cut the chat and cut to the chase. So, welcome everyone. This is phenomenal. Awesome that you guys are here. One of the things that we're learning is that if you want to succeed when it comes to getting a great job, you have to show up and you have to stand out. You have to be amazing against everyone else because there's hundreds of people, right? So, how do you show up and be the best you can be? Well, that's what these are all about, these sessions. We've run a whole bunch. I think this might be the fifth. Everyone is kind of better than the one before, if I'm honest with you. So you are in for a treat. We're all in for a treat this evening. And David, you've got some guests in the house for us, right? So we're going to do, what have we got lined up?
We've got a whole bunch. Yeah, I mean, last time went so well that we said, let's get some other rock stars, all-stars here to really share with us. We've got a number of different folks who have a number of different talents that they're going to share with you. Marc Williams, just an incredible speaker and coach. We've got Patricia Marseille, who also does leadership, communication coaching, and is high in the corporate space. And then Victoria from The Mindset. She is an incredible therapist and speaker and a number of other things. So we've got an incredible lineup, Dawood, that I think is going to just blow the roof off as we work through this hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, put your questions in the Q&A. And if you have some good chat, then put that in the chat. Hence, chat and Q&A. So two different things. We cannot get to all the questions. And last time we did it, we almost like blew up Zoom, right? So just keep the questions coming and we'll do what we can. But why don't let's get going because we don't have a lot of time. We have 90 minutes, something like that. But this is going to be phenomenal. I want to give everyone plenty of time. And so, David, I'm going to hand you the mic, but let's get into it.
All right, I'm going to do a nice intro to my good friend Marc here. He and I, and this is for everyone, you might want to look in Toastmasters. We said that last time, but I first met him when I was going on my communication journey to really step into how I communicate with people. And I saw Marc Williams on stage in a competition and my socks were blown off. And I said, that's what's possible from somebody speaking on a stage. And since then, he and I have developed this unique relationship, friendship, and business partnership where we just are all things coaching, training, communication, education, and Marc is an expert in that field. So Marc, it is a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
Great, David. Thank you for having me here. I'm so looking forward to being a part of all of this.
And so we set this up, Marc, so that you could share a little bit. I mean, you've got an incredible background, story. Give us some things to walk away from inside of your experience working with a lot of people on communication and how they should show up in all kinds of conversations, including interviews. We'd love to blast off from there.
Well, let's start off with this question. The question I have for everybody in the group today is, what is that one word that's driving you towards the success that you want in your professional career? With over 20 years of experience as an educator, I have often told my students that my one word is assiduous. Assiduous, ASSIDUOUS. Hold on. Somebody said, Marc, we cannot hear you clearly as the rest. David, is that true? I want to stop and make sure.
It's a little bit edgy, but I think if you speak up, we'll be in good shape and we'll work through it.
All right, well, let me put on my outside voice and let everybody know that my favorite word is assiduous, which means hard working, because everything that I have done in my life has been grounded on working hard. And yet, in my professional career especially, I have found myself asking, where has hard work really gotten me, especially as a Black male? And yet, I continue to work hard. I'm working hard as a speaker and a coach. I'm working hard as an entrepreneur who's been building my executive speech and career coaching business. I worked really hard when I was a principal, not only helping them to increase their graduation rate and academic rates. I was working really hard to help 11 underdog kids at that school become national champions in a STEM competition called Samsung Solve for Tomorrow. I worked really hard when I was an assistant principal at my old high school, where I changed the culture of the English department because they used to be a very divided clan. And then I helped to create a family unit where we were the most productive team possible. And I worked really hard. they call it a coordinator of student activities. I was also a teacher. I worked with proms and graduations, school dances, school trips, all of that stuff. And I worked really hard to bring people in like Rihanna and Russell Simmons and Steve Harvey and all these great people to help my students to perform their best and to be ready for their careers in their professional world. As hard as I worked, there were people who came up to me and said, Mark, you work really hard. Wouldn't you like to be the principal of the school? And I got to tell you, I graduated from the school. I became a teacher. I became an assistant principal at the school. To this day, that school is my heart and my soul. So I really entertained the idea of what could be a pinnacle position in my career as an educator. But then one person said to me, it'll never happen, Mark. Look at you. You're a Black male. In the 100+ years of this school, there's only been one Black male principal, and he was forced out. And to this day, they rarely ever bring up his name. So I'm sorry to say, but it's not going to happen for you. And I got to tell you, I looked at myself and I did not want to believe that. But the truth was, there was this big white Italian guy who was a principal at the time, and I didn't think he was going anywhere anyway. So when an opportunity came up for me to become a principal at another school, I took it. They recruited me particularly because I was a Black male from a poor background. And this was a school with Black kids from a poor background. I was happy to take on the job, but these were two of the toughest years of my entire career. And during those 2 years, that big white Italian guy who was the principal of my former school, he stepped down and moved on to something else. And who took over for him? This little white Italian guy who used to hang out in his office all the time, rubbing elbows. While I was working hard, he was rubbing elbows. And rubbing elbows got him a job that could have been mine. But I have no regrets, and I'm not upset about it. I would have loved the job, but the truth is, my journey has led me to doing work that I am so happy to do as an executive career and speech coach for the New York City Department of Education. Correction, I am an entrepreneur who runs my own executive speech and career coaching business, and one of my top clients is the New York City Department of Education. And during this time working on this mission, I've come across a lot of strategies that I wish that as a young Black person, I would have known back then. Because when I was going from store to store and company to company and interviewing and writing resumes, there was something I did not understand that was keeping me back from opportunities I was looking for. And those are some things that I'd like to share with you today. And today I'm only going to share with you 3 things. And I would love to come back and share with you more. But here's the first one. When I went on an interview for one of the most important jobs at the time, an assistant principal at my former school, a good friend of mine said, no matter what question they ask you, always respond with a story. See, we heard what I say a little bit earlier. There are 1,000,001 candidates out there, and anybody can spit out the same vocabulary during an interview, but no one else can tell your story. That's why I developed this whole 6-story formula for people to use during the interviews. But when you tell those stories, tip number 2, don't just tell stories about the work you've done. Tell stories about the results you have produced. Results are what matter, because results talk about your impact and your value and not just your desire to work. Can you please give me a job? I need a job. That won't cut it. You got to talk about your results, your impact, and your value. And the third tip that I'll share with everybody today is you have to understand what your professional brand is. They talk about elevator pitches. What do you say? Well, here's a real quick thing. And again, if this were a longer workshop, I would take you through the entire process. So we have to make sure that we get together again. A professional brand summary comes down to a 5-part formula. I just slowed down for a second, just in case you want to write this down. The 5-part formula for understanding your professional brand summary is: I am who helps to do or understand so that, for example, I am who helps to do or understand so that, for example, here's my example. Because the truth is, one of the most difficult things you will ever have to do in your lifetime is find a job. But yet you may only have less than 17 minutes to get hired for what may be your most important job. I am a committed, motivating, and informed executive career and speech coach who helps job seekers, career changers, people who want to advance in their career and their business, 1 million Black interns to understand how to rebrand themselves and talk about themselves in a compelling way so that they can grab more attention to the invaluable work that they do so that they can get hired to do that work. For example, I designed a professional branding coaching program for the New York City Department of Education, helping 79% of their displaced employees get hired for new permanent positions. That's my professional brand. How can you use that 5-part formula anytime you're in a networking or interviewing situation? I share this with you, and I'm happy to come back and share more because I am very happy with where life has led me. And life has led me here because of 4 words rather. The passion for what I do, the skills I've developed to do what I do, the understanding that what I do brings value to other people, and the hard work that got me here. I just finished off with 4 words, but I asked you at the beginning for 1, and I still stick with that 1 word. What's the 1 word you would use to describe the direction that you want to lead your professional life in? I look forward to seeing everybody again. My name is Marc Williams, and I'm here to take this walk with 1 million Black interns. Thank you.
Woo!
That's what I'm talking about. Love that. Love that.
Darwin, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Was so cool. That was great. You know, one of the things we love in our business, and one of the things that I've come to understand, it's taken me a long time to get it, but eventually I got it, right, is that in life you need frameworks, which is a framework is something you can just apply in the situation. You're in an interview, apply the framework. You're in a difficult spot, someone's asking you a question, you don't know the answer, apply the framework. You need a job, apply the framework, whatever it is. And what you just gave us right there is an incredible framework. It's right there. People just need to just memorize it, get it down, practice the framework. Phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, can we do a little Q&A and just, I think we'll probably get some from the chat, but I know, knowing you and conversations that we've had, I'd love to hear, like you've shared about your voice. And I think everybody in the chat, it's fired up, is that you just, the way you communicated, the passion that you have, like this wasn't necessarily who you've always been. And I know there's been this journey that you've been on. I'd love to hear, and everybody else I'm sure would love to hear, is what are some of those maybe moments, or where did you have to step into something? I know you shared a couple of them, so whatever is most prominent or top of mind for you, I think would be a huge value add for all of us.
Most important moment for me was sitting across the table, or one of the most important moments for me was sitting across the table from a guy named Artie. I was at one of those what they call cabinet meetings with all the other administrators, and I wasn't an administrator at the time. And I noticed that he spoke up. No matter even if he agreed, disagreed, felt sideways about what anybody was saying, he spoke up. And I remember, especially early in my career, just sitting back and listening. And listening is an incredible skill, but speaking up takes that incredible skill of listening and takes it to another level. And so that day transformed me because I committed myself to doing things like Toastmasters and speaking up more at meetings, at conferences, at events, so that I can make my presence known. Listening to people, speaking will make your presence known. So let's get our presence known.
I love it. And I mean, I'm open to anything in the chat. Patricia, Victoria, if you guys have questions, Dawood, same. Mark, I know one other thing that we've gotten a lot of feedback inside of just this forum and this platform is I've got an interview coming up and I'm really nervous. And I want to, from a mindset perspective or a nerves perspective, I want to put my best foot forward. How do I do that? Like, what is it? We've teased out practicing, we've teased out a number of different things, but would love to hear what you might recommend inside of those nerves bumbling up and wanting to make, as you said, that 17 minutes maximized in terms of impact.
Stand up and speak your mental monologue. I remember speaking at a contest once and the lady told me, stop sitting down right before they call you up on stage or right before they call you in for the interview. Stand up. Just physiologically, it just helps you, right? They talk a lot about the Superman pose. You can't see my whole pose here right now, but the Superman pose is a real deal. But I spoke to a client recently about the mental monologue. And what I learned from her is that a lot of people do not mentally prepare themselves right for the moment. We have a lot of imposter syndrome talk in our brain right before. So how do we combat that imposter syndrome talk? We have to infuse our own talk. So whether you picture yourself as standing behind the curtain with your hooded robe on right before you're about to step up to the ring, or whether you picture yourself as the person in your corner speaking to you at your ring, what would you say to yourself, or what would you tell somebody else to say to themselves before they step into the interview? Once you come up with that language, speak it to yourself before you go out. Stand up and use your mental monologue.
I love it. Well, Patricia, Victoria, if you guys want to jump in, or Dawood, how do people find you, Mark? Where can, like, I've already gotten a message there saying, like, is it a Twitter handle, or where can they find you on, for some of this? I know you send out some daily stuff too as well. So I'd love to just have contact info for everyone.
Sure. So my website is markwilliamsspeaks.com. That's Marc Williams and the word speaks.com. My email is also markwilliamsspeaks@gmail.com. I am on Instagram under Marc Williams Speaks. So those are different ways that you can reach out to me. And feel free, yes, David, every day I send out a daily question. You might even see these as potential interview questions that you can use to reflect upon yourself and give yourself the kind of content that you can use whenever talking about yourself. And every Tuesday, I always send out a Tuesday morning tune-up. So if anybody's interested in signing up for either one of those things, just send me an email. Throw in 365 in the subject line or Tuesdays in the subject line, and I'll add you to my subscription list. Happy to help in any way that I can.
Mark, that was great. That was great. Let me just jump in and just very quickly ask you a question. So one of the big things that we find when it comes to interviews is people tend to show up a little bit intimidated. So they're a little bit quieter. And, if they were talking to their friends, they would be like you. They would be enthusiastic. They would be saying, whoa, did you see the match on Saturday? Did you see what happened? But when it comes to the interview, somehow it's just, because of the circumstances, the environment, it's just a little bit intimidating for them. How do you get yourself from that place to where you are, where you're full of energy, you're showing up, and you're moving around, and you're like, look, I'm in charge here. I've got this thing covered. How do you get to that? Is it practice? Were you born like that? How did you get to that place?
Definitely not born like that, and definitely a lot of practice and understanding what to practice. So when I go back to that tip that a friend of mine gave earlier, no matter what they ask you, respond with a story. That means that you have to think about the stories you want to tell way before the interview ever happens. Go through those lists. There's 1,000,001 lists of common interview questions. Pull them out. Practice saying them. But here's the thing. Don't just practice them for the interview. Don't just practice them in front of the mirror. Take some of these stories and infuse them in your conversations, because the more you tell the stories, the easier it flows when you have to speak them during a highly anxious situation like an interview. We're just caught off guard. Don't be caught off guard.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. By the way, I'd love to get Patricia or Victoria jumping in on this, because I'm sure they've got some good stuff to add right here.
I thought it was great. I mean, the Q&A is totally blowing up. So I'd love for Mark to really just start to address some of these questions for everyone. Like one of the key questions was, do we say that the 5-part professional brand summary when they ask, tell me about yourself?
Yes, it's actually a great response for that because most people don't prepare themselves for that question, even though it's the most common question. So yes, use the 5-part formula to answer that first question during the interview.
And is it okay to incorporate your personal life struggles into stories at an interview?
If you incorporate your personal life struggles, make sure that you connect it to what you offer professionally. So if I say that, yeah, I'm really struggling at home right now under COVID because I've got 5 people in the house and we're all sharing, devices, it's taught me a lot about how to organize in a situation where there's a lot of people. And so you turn it, make sure you always connect it back to the job you're looking to be hired for.
Rohan is asking, your energy is amazing. How do you maintain it? And do you have specific routines?
I wake up in the morning and I listen to about 5, 10, or 15 minutes of mindfulness meditation. That's how I start the day off. I follow it up with any kind of YouTube video of some of my favorite motivational speakers. That's the early morning fuel for the mind. Les Brown, Eric Thomas, Billy Alsbrook, you name them. And then I try to get in a little bit of exercise. And then here's the kicker. I've got a playlist. The playlist on my Amazon is called Feel My Energy. So I'm listening to music in the morning to pump me up. Music is a wonderful energy driver. So meditation, motivation, and music is my early morning energy for the day.
Sounds like my kind of morning. That's pretty much how I flow. So, an anonymous question says, so, Mark, with the 5-part formula, your personal example was clearly defined, and your vast experience helps makes this even stronger. For those of us who have limited professional experience, how would you advise we discover our own unique brand?
Okay. Good question. Right now, I'd like for you to start thinking about some of the things you've done and how you have used those things to help other people. Because at the end of the day, your brand is about how you have helped other people. It is my belief that all of us in some way have helped other people, even if that help does not translate into 79% or whatever the big numbers are. Think about how you have helped people and how you have solved problems, because the skills that you have used to help others and to solve problems are transferable skills in just about every industry.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I just sometimes give this example of a young lady I was talking to, I was mentoring, and I was having a chat. She was, by the way, she was in West Africa. I was here, we were having this conversation, and she was talking about helping someone locally. And I was saying, Justina, that's incredible that you're doing that. I mean, because in your situation, I would have thought you'd be thinking about yourself, not about helping someone else necessarily. And then she said these words. She said, I always believe, and I've always believed this, that you should lift as you climb. That you should lift as you climb. And I was like, that just blew my mind. So I then took that and I used that somewhere else. And this is the thing, lift as you climb, to your point, by the way, Mark, exactly that, right? You just put that in there and suddenly, it just shows that you're someone that just isn't thinking about yourself. You're lifting as you climb. And yeah, I absolutely love that kind of a way of turning things and just, by the way, it's got to be authentic. You can't make this stuff up, right? You don't just get a bunch of slogans and stick them in the mix. It doesn't work. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be real, right?
Yes. I love that line. I got to use that somewhere.
Isn't that great? Victoria, jump in for us a little bit. Tell us what you're thinking about all this.
Yeah, so later on, I'm actually going to be talking a little bit about it. But one of the tips that I did have also was, these people who are interviewing you are asking themselves, can I see myself working with this person? Can I see myself as this person, as my colleague? And so when you go in there, a big tip that I have is behave like their colleague, right? Professionalism. your own sense of uniqueness is going to come out. And so instead of walking into an interview thinking they're just looking to see what my flaws are and where I don't fit in, they're actually looking to see where you do fit in. So that's a big tip that I have for the question that you had, Dawood. And then what I want to know before Mark gets off, because Mark is incredible, and it was in the question and answer section. And I want to ask too, what motivates you and what is your why?
What motivates me is helping people to see their value. Whenever I coach people, at the end of the day, if they walk away feeling amazing about themselves, I'm on that climb. I'm on that climb. So that's what motivates me, helping other people to see and speak their value. What is my why? My why is always my family. You know, my why is always my mom, may she rest in peace. My aunt, may she rest in peace. My wife, my children, may they eat in peace. So that's my why, and that's the value that I always try to bring to help you.
Amazing, Mark. Mark, I know you need to run, but this was truly, you know, from my heart to yours, this was beautiful, and I think everybody got incredible value for your contribution. So thank you so much.